Okay, so yeah, I was serving in it was my Greenie area, and I was in Manoa in Hawaii, in the Honolulu zone, and I had just been having a hard time, and just being there alone, it was just like, I'm away from family. I'm I basically just felt alone. Of course, I had my companion there, but I didn't feel the love of my family just because I was away from them. I've never been away from them before, and um, just in that area, I got on my knees and prayed, and that night, I felt the Savior in my life, and specifically whenever I had that dream, he hugged me, and I'm like, ever since that, I knew that the Lord was by my side whenever I was um, serving for the rest of my mission. Ever since that experience, everything was good.
There, it was kind of a process. I was on Kauai. I just got transferred there, and a few weeks in, I'm looking in the area book, and I pointed out one person who had been taught before, and she was actually the sister of a member in the ward we were in. I told my commander, like, hey, I feel really good about this lady. I was reading the notes the previous missionaries left, said, can we go visit her? And he said, no, just, and he kind of explained the situation. Her sister was a little bit out there. So I said, okay, no worries. I kind of dropped it. I'd bring it up every now and then and such. And so we never visit her with that companion. And then I got a new companion who said, hey, look, he said this about her, but I still really want to go visit her. Do you want to do that? And he's like, yeah, okay. Like I believe in it. So we went to go visit her, and as we were teaching, I had an almost out of body experience where like the words were just flowing out of my mouth, and still can't remember how that happened and what was going on, but like she eventually accepted our invitation to be baptized. It didn't really work out because some things with her sister were happening, but ultimately I still remember that, and I just remember that was like one of the first experiences I had where the Spirit just completely took over the lesson for one of the first times of my mission. So.
I think one of the most like spiritual experiences that I don't think I'll ever forget from serving my mission. There was one of my converts that I had. He was the funniest guy. He was like this crazy like Catholic kid that like, he just like lived his culture, and he was just so crazy, but he was so funny. And he had a friend that introduced him to the church, and his parents were like super against it. They were like, we don't want you talking about it. We don't want you like learning about it, like nothing. And so he was like, okay, well, he got online, messaged the missionaries. The sister that he actually connected with, she was from Hawaii. So she was serving in Salt Lake at Temple Square, and they started corresponding, answering questions. Well, she came home. She started helping us teach him. But for the longest time, he'd be like, I want to be baptized, but I'm scared. We're like, for what? Like, what do you... You don't have to, like, sign your life away. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And he was, like, terrified. And he's like, my family's going to disown me. He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, I'm going to have to live, like, this perfect life now because I'm going to be, if I get baptized. And we're like, you have this all wrong. Like, you need... So we would teach him, and I told him, I was like, okay, well, we're not going to push you into anything. Like, you need to know for yourself. And he would do really good. He came to church a lot with us when he could, when he wasn't working. And he actually had planned his baptism like a couple of times. Like, we got his interviews done, we got like, and then like at the last second he'd be like, I can't do this, sisters, I'm sorry. And then he'd like fall off the face of the earth for a couple weeks, and we'd be like, come on, man. Like, so like finally, I think it was like my second to last transfer in that area, he calls us one day, he's like, can we have a lesson today? And we're like, where have you been? Like, yeah, we can have a lesson today. Meet you at the church. And we're like, we meet outside, right, on the sidewalk, and, have our lesson. And he's like, I want to be baptized. And I was like, okay. When do you want to be baptized? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I want to be baptized over General Conference weekend. He's like, that's legit, right? That's pretty cool. We're like, yeah, that's cool. And so we figure out, like, we get on our calendar, like, figure everything out. He's like, oh, I can't do it that weekend. I have this and this and this. He was like the busiest human ever. And so, like, you look on his phone, on his calendar, every day has, like, a dot. And so he was like, well, I really want to get baptized in April. Like, I really do. And we were like, okay, well, then you know what we got to do right now? And he's like, what? We're like, we got to pray. We got to pray for this date. And he's like, okay. And so we asked him to say a prayer, and he said this, like, very hesitant, but you could tell it was a very meaningful prayer. And he was like, just, if there's a day that I'm supposed to be baptized this month, he's like, just let it be known to us. You know, he's like, because I really want to be baptized. So he ends the prayer, and then he sits there, and he's like, doesn't say anything. He just kind of, like, shakes his head. We're like, so is there anything, you know, like, prayers aren't always answered in, like, 5 seconds. And he's just like, well, I'll just wait. And so we're like, okay. Literally, like, 5 minutes. He opens his, like, calendar up again. I swear on this day there was a dot and there was things that he had to do, but we looked and there was one day out of the whole month of April that did not have a dot on it. And it was April 11th. It was a Monday. And he was like, this day, this is the day. And I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, look, there's no dot. Like, we have to do this. So he's like, I have an hour for lunch that day. He's like, I do have work, but he's like, I have an hour for lunch. He's like, let's do it on my lunch break. We're like, okay, so first it's a P day for us. So we're like, all right, okay. So we plan this baptism for, like, that's in, like, 2 weeks. Like, so we plan this baptism. We get to that P day, we get all of our stuff done, and then we meet him at the church, and he's, like, stressing out. He's like, he's already changed into, like, his white jumpsuit, right? He's just, like, pacing the hallway of our chapel, and he's like, and he's, like, trying to do these deep breaths, and we're trying to talk to him. He's like, I'm fine. Well, the friend that introduced him to the church, she came to the baptism, and they met, I think, at, like, Kamehameha schools, so they both speak Hawaiian. So she walks in, and they just start, like, speaking Hawaiian at each other. And they're like, blah, blah, blah. And we're just sitting there kind of, like, trying to listen in case, you know, we catch a few words, which we didn't. You can just see, like, he's kind of freaking out. And she's, like, calming him down. She's like, whatever she said in Hawaiian, like, I think she even prayed with him in Hawaiian. Like, she was just, like, you can do this. Like, you know, and so after he's like, okay, and he walks away, and she comes up to us, and she's like, he's nervous, but he's ready. And I was like, what did you say to him? And she's like, well, I just told him that this decision wasn't going to be a bad decision. Like, even if he struggled, and even if there was, like, temptations that came up after, like, this will always be a good decision. This will always bless him. So we're like, okay, and so we go in, you know, the baptism starts, and then the sister missionary that actually taught him, the first one that taught him through LDS or Mormon.org, she actually came and spoke at the baptism. She shared, like, his whole, like, journey, right? So from the time they started corresponding to the time she got home and, like, met him in person. And it was just really cool. Like, the spirit was just so strong, because it was like kind of like these long lost friends that, like, finally met. And it was just so cool. And he's crying, and we're crying, and everyone in the room was just crying. And the spirit was so strong. And then it was time for him to get baptized, and he looked at us, and he was like, I'm ready. And I just was like such a proud mom. Like, I'm like, he's ready to go. So we get down in there, and there was a bishop that he met. I think the bishop was living in Waipahu. He was over, like, a YSA ward, I think. But he baptized him. And it was just, like, that whole day, was just like spiritual high. And after that, like, he did struggle with things. There were some things that came up, but just from that day, like, it was just like a testimony to me that no matter what, like, being a member of the church and, you know, doing your best, enduring to the end, it will always be worth it, even though it can be hard. And I mean, I've kept in touch with him, and he's just, you know, he has his ups and his downs, but he knows, like, trust in the Lord, and, you know, you're going to do what you need to do, and you're going to be happy if you keep to God's plan. And so that day was just like, even after the baptism, like the rest of our day, we still had to go out and teach at night. You know, we still had things to do, but like, I was like on cloud nine, and I swear, like, I've had a lot of spiritual experiences, but that day was just like, just to see how far he has come, and from the day that he was like canceling his baptism on us to the day he actually got baptized, he just grew a lot. And so that was a really cool, really spiritual experience that I think I'll always remember. I was actually surprised I remembered the day, but yeah, no, that was probably one of my most, I think, spiritual experiences. Just that baptism, just that guy in general, just that convert. He taught me a lot. He taught me patience.